Hey everybody, welcome to Nagios in the Node. I'm Aaron.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dylan.
Dylan, what are you doing here?
I'm a support engineer.
You're a support engineer. Fantastic. Ryan, of course, we've seen you.
Yeah.
And we've heard your voice off
Perfect.
stage a couple of times. So we're good to go. Today, we're talking about what to monitor in your home with your free 7-node license with Nagios XI. Ryan, tell us about the free 7-node.
Yeah, you may not be aware, but we do offer a fully functional 30-day trial of all of our solutions. But specifically speaking to Nagios XI, if you were to type free into your license key, that'll become a free 7-node license, which, as the name implies, you can monitor up to 7 nodes indefinitely and use Nagios to its full potential. So really, here as a group today, we'd like to kind of discuss some things maybe you could be monitoring at home.
Dylan, what's a node?
A node is, well, in XI you'd call it a host, right?
Okay.
So it's the main physical piece of hardware that you may monitor a number of services on.
Okay. Now we're monitoring something that isn't physical hardware today, aren't we? Well, sort of, but sort of not.
Well, yeah. I mean, you need something that can send some kind of signal over a network to monitor it, right?
Fair
And
enough.
basically anything that can send any kind of signal, you can find a way to monitor.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's cool about Nagios for sure. So that's what we're talking about today are the things you could monitor in your home with Nagios XI. So like Ryan, like everything's got an app. Why not just use the app?
Yeah, a couple reasons there. I mean, who wants 12 apps just for the things that they use daily around their house? So you can bring everything under one centralized point of view. As well, who wants to be beholden to those apps either? So, I mean, kind of making your own app in a sense with Nagios XI. You get to control what you're monitoring from, what you're monitoring, how you're monitoring it, and then the metrics you're interested in.
Yeah, I like it. So like we have a special guest today that will be revealed a little bit later. And so we'll save that for last. But like the first thing that we're talking about, like maybe for those of you who live in a single family home or know people who do, like the basement seems like a place where some things you may not always be paying attention to, like a water sensor or a temperature sensor down there. What do you think on that, Dylan?
Sure, yeah. If you've got problems of moisture or water in your basement, you could rig up a moisture sensor to a small processor and have it send information to your XI instance.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you could probably do relative humidity.
Sure.
You could do presence of water.
Anything that you could get a sensor for that you could hook up to a processor, you can monitor.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about that too. Like, I am a big ESP32 nerd, and I'm super into that. What other sort of processors have you hooked up?
Does that mean you can read minds or?
Yes, and I saw that coming.
Perfect.
So what else are you thinking that you can use to drive your sensors?
I suppose you could use like a Raspberry Pi,
Yep.
like any number of Arduino processors, or
Yeah, anything that can drive a sensor out there. So, another thing we might talk about would be like a temp sensor in a deep freezer. I know that some people that have a deep freezer, I know people out in the country that they'll put like 3 months worth of food in a deep freeze.
Yeah, got to make sure it's still edible when it's time to eat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And along the same vein, a little broader though, is I did the temperature sensor thing in my garage. We don't really have a garage fridge, so we put bottles of water, sodas, and things like that. Gets below a certain temp, I got to move those or I'm picking up a mess of exploded soda all over my garage floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You live up north with us.
I do.
Absolutely.
Here in the great state of Minnesota.
Yeah. Home network. Are you monitoring your home network at all? It's okay if you're not.
No,
I mean, I would
I'm
forgive
actually
you.
not at home.
Right. But if you wanted to, what are your options there?
Oh, sure. I mean, you could look at the bandwidth throughput on every single port on it. You could look at whether or not it's on or off. If you've got some more advanced control, you could look at if your ports are administratively down. I mean, mostly you'd probably just be interested in your bandwidth.
Yep.
In and out.
Yeah.
Keep that ISP honest.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting what you're paying for.
Absolutely. Do you, like, I have one hardwired connection in my house. The rest of it is Wi-Fi. Are you running anything hardwired?
Maybe a gaming system, but otherwise everything's wireless. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our internet comes into a modem, and then that's wired to a router, and then that's wired to a better router with more antennas upstairs.
All right. Do you have different network segments then?
I actually just have one in like bridging mode into the other.
Okay.
So I turned off the Wi-Fi on the one that the ISP gave me.
Right.
It's just hardwired into my better antenna
Sure.
router upstairs.
Cool.
But basically everything is connected wirelessly after that.
Yeah. I think definitely one application for monitoring your stuff at home and related to this is like I have some people that I know, and they have a farmhouse that doesn't get wired service, but the cell reception is fantastic, and I put a cellular modem in there for them. And like, it's always interesting though, like to see like, is that up, right? Because I'm always a little nervous about it because there's not always somebody out at the farmhouse.
Sure.
And so like, what kind of bandwidth are we getting through there? What kind of throughput? And in that case, not even necessarily to keep tabs on the ISP so much, but I'm always curious, like, how much throughput can we get? And how much can we do? How much can we send? How much is left over for the Wi-Fi? How much bandwidth is left over that can be consumed for high-speed data when the grandparents and the kids get out there to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Plus, like, I run sensors out there, and like that's my main connection back in to the network, right? So I'm running Wi-Fi, I've got sensors on Wi-Fi, and then I've got a cellular modem that's kicking that back up to the internet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So keeping an eye on that modem is central to knowing that happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, and if depending on how remote it is, it's also an indicator when you're not there if like the power's on out there.
Oh yeah, actually that makes a great proxy
Like a built-in indicator.
Yeah, if you can't get it. And it's been a really reliable piece of equipment. I'm super happy with the purchase. So I think it does make a decent proxy for do we have power?
Yeah.
Yeah, good one. What else have we got? The compost pile is on the list. Now the compost pile is something that I talked a little bit about a while back. A couple years ago is a project that I worked on. That, to refresh your memory. So I've got I'm trying to remember.
Compost and he monitors.
I'm trying to remember the actual like name and serial number of the sensor, but basically I've got a waterproof temperature sensor in the pile at the base of the pile, and you kind of have to be a compost nerd to get into this, but
Very niche.
if you get enough compost, and enough compost is about a square yard or a square meter. For our other friends out there who don't subscribe to U.S. units, or those imperial units, is that what those are?
I'm gonna politely.
You're gonna
stay out of
decline.
these. Yeah.
British Imperial.
British imperial,
Yeah.
yes. So and then they use meters anyway, so they've abandoned it.
Yes.
And here we're sticking with it. We're running. So about a square meter or a cubic meter, forgive me, is a sufficient amount of compost to really generate and break down. And so what the temperature sensor in the compost pile does is it gives you a little bit of insight into how well the composting process is working. It runs pretty hot. So I've measured temperatures up to about 135 degrees.
Oh, okay.
And the hotter your pile's running, the faster you are making compost, the faster you're making dirt. The thing is, though, when it's running really hot, it's burning all the oxygen in the pile, all the microbes that are at work there. And so when they get through all the oxygen, it starts to come down. The temperature starts to come down. And we can take the temperature as a signal of how well the composting process is going. So as it falls, that's when you want to know that the temperature is falling, because when it falls below a certain point, that's when you need to turn your compost pile and reintroduce some air into it so that we have more oxygen so that we can continue making continue making compost. So I did that. I ran that off a Raspberry Pi, but I've since moved most of my stuff to the ESP32.
Oh, sure.
But you gotta love a Pi.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. IoT devices. I think that's like any sensor.
Sure. I mean, you can have one in anything. The common thing most people might have is like a smart thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
Can we monitor the smart thermostat?
If it can output a signal, I mean, I imagine there's a way you could make it work.
Right. Could you hack the Nest? And I did not just violate intellectual property by suggesting that. However, if you come up with one, leave us a message in the comments and we'll be careful not to review that.
How hard can it be to hack Google? Not very.
Right. I mean,
Hey.
what are they doing? So I think the IoT thing is, I mean, in general, basically, it goes back to what you were saying a little while ago, where all you need is some digital or even analog device
Oh, sure.
that is connected to the network. Now, whether that's connected all the way to the internet because you're sending it across a network segment, or that's just on your local network, as long as you've got a network connection and the ability to measure something and send the data, you got it. And then security cameras.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, we can't, I mean, I would be interested. We're not actually sending any of the imagery.
I don't believe there's a
Yeah.
way you can do that.
No.
But
Right.
You could know if your security system is up.
Yep.
Right?
Depending on what kind of security system is, you could know if it's armed,
Okay. Oh, all right.
if it's wired into like door sensors or any other kind of sensors.
Okay. All right. So if you're clever about your security system, and I mean, for a large part, if you're looking at your home network, you can see what's connected.
Yeah.
And if you know what it is, at the very least, you can attempt to ping it. You can just see if it's present or not, because if it's not present on the network, or you're expecting at least a certain number of devices, and you check the network and you know, like you've got people and guests and whatever, but like baseline, without any additional people, you know that you've got, say, 4 cameras and a base unit, right? Like if you ever have fewer than 5 devices on your network, at least one of those is down.
Something's
and it's
up.
something that you should be taking a look at. So that's what I mean. You almost could do the BPI
Yeah.
with that. So like
Find there's a
BPI,
couple.
yeah,
Yeah.
for people who aren't aware of that facility in Nagios, it's called Business Process Intelligence, and that allows you to notify and alert on a collection of things. So like if you needed to know that at least 3 cameras were up and you have 4 of them, the Business Process Intelligence would say, well, this one's down, but I've still got 3 and that's okay. But that another one goes down and you're down to 2, that's when Business Process Intelligence would send you a notification that you want to take a look at something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's so much on this, and what I would love to see are the things, because I know you people, you're out there, you're monitoring stuff. I would love to see in the comments what you're monitoring and what we missed, what you wish we'd have talked about, what we might talk about in the future. And I think right about now, we might be ready to invite our special guest. All right, so now I am going to introduce and bring in our very special guest. Hi, I'm Fernando.
So this is the support team, Fernando. And we were a little worried when we first brought him in that we might, being a bunch of very busy, very distractible nerds, forget to water him sometimes. So our most senior engineer came up with a little fun project where he hooked a moisture sensor up to an ESP32 and hooked that up to a solar panel. And every 4 hours, it sends an SNMP trap to our support Nagios XI instance. and lets us know just how well hydrated Fernando is today.
Why did you pick an SNMP trap on that?
Well, because we wanted the processor to be sending the data on a regular interval to our XI instance rather than the XI instance reaching out to something that has to be powered and active all the time. So it keeps the power consumption really low to just send one trap every 4 hours. And that's how he can run off just that little tiny solar panel.
All right. So in Nagios parlance, we're talking about a passive check rather than an active check, which is of course true for SNMP traps.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's like, and so I'm fascinated. Well, first, it's because Tom, who built the system out, is into SNMP.
He is the expert in our department.
He is the SNMP expert. I think, what's interesting to me is that you can send it to a Nagios instance. I have some sensors that send up to like a Google Cloud function, and then I hit those. Like I put a server in the middle, and then I check that. This is nice because we're all inside on the same network. But like when I have sensors outside of my network, I got to take them to a central place to get them. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because you can't. It's hard to get past the firewall, especially if depending on how you set it up. But
it does take a little tooling if you want to send them outside network. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's in the box?
Well, that's where the processor is.
Is there a battery in there?
I believe there might be a small capacitor of some sort. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I want.
It's kind of a mystery box. Tom put it together. And
a literal black box.
A literal black box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It has this wonderful toggle switch on top, which is just labeled on in one direction, no other label.
What else you can infer the off?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I mean, on presumes off. And I think like I need to up my capacitor game, right? Like how far can you get with capacitors before you have to get to a battery?
I mean, in technical terms, a battery is a type of capacitor.
Or
right?
Yes. Yeah. All right. Fair.
It's an electronic component that holds and maintains a charge.
Correct. All right. Beautiful. I think I've been more focused on batteries than capacitors up until this point. I mean, like, I put a lot of capacitors
capacity.
What's that?
You just haven't had the capacity?
I may not have had the capacity.
I'm on fire.
So I put capacitors in circuits where the circuit designers tell me to. But I haven't really gotten into using capacitors in place of batteries for things that we know will only run for a short time. And, how much charge can you put into a capacitor to fire up an ESP32 for just a little bit?
I mean, I do believe that Tom probably has a battery in there. I meant capacitor in the technical sense that batteries fall under the umbrella of capacitor. And not capacitor in the more literal sense of like a capacitive diode, right?
You guys. Yeah, Aaron, you're looking really creepy, Aaron. Push the plant to the right. We gotta stop this. This is really creepy. Like you're like creeping behind a plant. Like we can show B-roll.
I like that.
Move the plant over. It can be between you.
Hey, everybody. I think the only thing that I regret is all of the outtakes from this shot that you're never going to get to see. We have been having a great time today. So questions for you. What are you monitoring? What ideas do you have? What do you got going on? Definitely, I do. I mean, it is Nagios. I would like to pump the free 7 node. There's a lot that's cool about it. We've got a link to where you can download your free 7 node of Nagios XI. Of course, Core is free. We also have some migration tools that could migrate what you have from your Core into an XI. You've got a free 30-day full enterprise trial on that. So if you've got a Core monitoring more than 7 things, you can migrate that over, keep your Core. I'm not saying get rid of that, but you can migrate that over and see how that all plays out and how that looks in there. After 30 days, the free edition will allow you to keep monitoring 7 hosts and up to 100 service checks. Is that, I believe that is correct.
I believe that is, yeah.
So definitely check that out. And thanks so much for joining us. We've had a great time cutting this, and I would love to hear more about your projects. And with that, I think I want to thank Dylan for being our special guest. I hope you're able to come back for more. And Ryan, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, basically work smarter, not harder. If you got a sensor and an idea, you can monitor it with Nagios.
I love it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.
Happy monitoring.
Happy monitoring.